Okay, good afternoon. My name is Rebecca, and thank you so much for the chance to be here to speak with you at this TEDx event. Today I want to tell you two stories. These are stories of teenage boys. I think they're probably similar in age to you, but they don't live in New York State, they live in Africa. And they don't live in condo buildings or apartments or houses. Actually, they live on the street. Now, how many people here, you can raise your hands, I won't tell your teacher, didn't want to go to school one day last month? Okay, thanks for being honest. Well, these two boys I'm going to tell you about today, they've actually never had the chance to go to school. And I want to share with you these stories because after I met these kids, my life completely changed. It changed what I wanted to do and how I viewed the world. It reminded me that you can take the passion that you have for something and use it to transform your entire life. And it also set me on the path to where I am today, running an organization that creates dance and educational programs for street children and underserved youth in post-conflict countries and developing countries. Okay, so before I tell you the two stories, I'd like to ask you a question, if that's okay. What is the most important thing to you in your life? Now, the trick is you can only choose one thing. Something that you absolutely can't live without. Shout out your answers. Food, excellent. I heard somebody say a video camera, okay. I ask this question all the time, it's one of my favorite questions. When I asked it in Bosnia, a young boy said that the one thing he can't live without is air, oxygen. Good question. Good answer, I thought. Second question. I promise this is the end of questions. This one is maybe a little bit more challenging. If there was one thing in the world that you could change, what would it be? Like, I know we want to change everything, right? But think of one thing and then you just go boom, and it changes. What would it be? Death. Poverty. Okay. This same boy in Bosnia, he answered to this question, time. He would like to change time. Okay, so on to our first story. We can play the video. Now this is the video from one of our dance programs in Guinea. Guinea is a country in West Africa. And the quality of the video is very poor, but it's the best we have in Guinea, so please bear with it.
Chin. Now, what you wouldn't guess when you walk into this place and watch these kids
just go for it on the dance floor, is that 50% of these boys either live on the street now or used to live on the street. Moreover, 25% of them are illiterate. They can't even write their name. You can give them a pen and they just stare at you. And yet, they can do these amazing acrobatic feats, things that I couldn't even imagine before I met them. When I asked these kids, what's the most important thing to you in your life? They told me dance. Now, one of the boys that's part of this program is named Bangali. And I am so sorry, I pronounced his name incredibly wrong, which is why I asked the boy if I could give him a nickname. Thankfully, he said yes, and we chose the name Sergey. Sergey is actually the name of one of the best Russian dancers I ever worked with in Philadelphia. And Sergey is the kid in the middle here. So Sergey won the chance to come to the United States last year for 1 month of dance training. And this was his first time to the United States. It was his first time leaving Africa. It was the first time he had left his country. It was the first time he had left his village and gone to the capital city, Conakry. It was actually the first time he had ever been in a car. And this is him in New York. And this is also Sergey in New York. And this is also Sergey in New York. Unfortunately, this is not reality for this kid. Reality for Sergey is living on the streets in Guinea. His father died when he was still very young, and he stopped going to school because he has to spend every day trying to find some small little job that he can do in order to buy a bag of rice so his family can eat that day. After he discovered this dance program in Guinea, his whole life changed. He walked into this studio and he was like, I want to take class. We were like, okay, fine, come. Everybody can come. And that day he discovered that he's really, really good at something. He has a talent for something and he loves it. A year later, he was here. When you ask Sergey, what's the most important thing to you in your life? He says dance. When you ask him, what's the one thing in the world that you would like to change? He says that he wants to be able to feed his family. Now for our second story. This is Christiane. Christiane lives in Rwanda. Rwanda is in the Great Lakes region of Africa. It's kind of like in the middle of the continent. And I first met Christiane living here. He was living here with 29 other former street boys. And you can probably guess what I found them doing, dancing. We'll see if this one plays. Okay, so it plays. There's also sound, you can imagine the sound. And Christiane is the kid in the center. Now, before they met me, they had never had a dance teacher before. They're completely self-taught, their own choreography, their own moves. They come up with all of this stuff on their own. And they invited me to this performance where they were presenting their choreography. And I asked them afterwards, how did you guys get those clothes? Because I've never seen 5 matching shirts on street kids. And they said, oh, well, the money we make from these shows, we save up so we can buy these white shirts for the next performance. And this is how they spend their time. But again, this is not reality in Rwanda. In Rwanda, 42% of the population is under the age of 15. So if we take the room that's here today, 2/5 of the people running the country of Rwanda, rebuilding this nation, are younger than you. And the reason this is because of the genocide in 1994. And in the aftermath, this country was left with this huge population that didn't have access to shelter or education. And today, a generation later, we end up with the problem of street children. When you ask Christiane, what's the most important thing in your life, guess what he answers? Dance, yeah. You guys are really smart. When you ask him, what's the one thing that you would like to change, he says he wants the chance to go to school. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, after I met these kids in Africa, I came back to my home in Philadelphia. I came back to my apartment. I came back to the school I had gone to where I had gotten educated. I came back to the dance company I ran. And I thought to myself, look, I love the same thing that these kids love. Isn't there some way that I can leverage this talent, this love of dance, to give these kids just a chance in life. And so after a lot of thinking, I decided to change my organization and change our mission. And now what we do is we establish dance and educational programs for street kids and underserved youth like Sergei and Christiane in post-conflict countries and developing nations. We work in Bosnia, Rwanda, and Guinea. And the whole idea of this is that we go and we find local organizations in these countries that gather together street kids. Then we hire a team of locals that teach the dance program and then teach an educational workshop as part of that. So what we see is that the success of these kids is sequential. What happens at first is the street kids come because they love to dance and this is fun. So they end up coming to this center every day. Then after time, they end up developing the same learning skills that they would have already had if they had families or schooling. They end up learning how to understand information, process it, concentrate, be disciplined, retain information, regurgitate information, and this develops through their dance class. Then as we see these skills kick in, we move them to the educational component. The educational component could be anything. It depends what the community needs. It could be basic IT classes, it could be English classes, it could be a literacy program. And then those kids are learning a skill that they can really leverage in their life. So they started off coming to dance because it's fun and they love it. And they ended up not only developing basic learning skills, but also with a skill that they can use. And some of the kids in our Rwanda program, they're in our computer class now. And the kids are illiterate, but they want to learn how to type with the keyboard, so now they're starting to learn how to spell their name. These are kids that had never even seen a computer before. Now, the kids who excel, the kids who are even the top of the educational program, we find them sponsors so that they can be tracked into the formal education system and they go to boarding school in Africa. The stories of these kids, the challenges, their successes, everything that they're trying to do in their lives is featured on this RwandaYouth.com. So by now, I know that you guys can answer these two questions for me. What's the most important thing to me? Yeah. And if there's one thing I could change, I would like to change the lives of these street kids. So I'm here today to tell you that there's something that you can find. There's something that you love, and there's something that you want to change. For me, I love dance. It's just always been like that for me. And then I ended up viewing firsthand the lives of these street kids. And it was up to me to figure out how to use this to change that. I hear people all the time say like, oh, I read that news about Africa, that's so sad, you know, there's such poverty. Oh, there was just this natural disaster in Asia. Oh, there's more violence in South America. But you know, like, what can I do? You know, I'm just applying to college, or I just work in a restaurant. I'm just a singer. You know, I'm looking for a job myself. But that's the key. The key is in that, is that you are something, and there's something that you are really, really good at. There's something that you're going to do just because you love doing it. So my challenge to you is how to identify that, and then that thing in the world that you don't like, that you want to go like that and change. How do you connect those two things? Look, if I could do it with dance, I know you guys can do it a billion times better than me in a million more ways. So now you're thinking, well, I have to write a school paper, and I have to go to choir practice, and I have band lessons, and I have to, you know, go help my mom with this. You know, I understand what you're saying, but hey, I'm busy. Totally get it. I know, some mornings you just wake up and you want to like crawl back into bed and hide from the world. I've been there 1,000 times. I was there yesterday. But don't we have some sort of like responsibility to unleash our talent into the world? Like Sergei, now he's able to feed his family in Guinea because he dances. If he can do that, then we have to do it. It's our responsibility.